No one in that crowd was prepared for what was about to happen, and if you think you have already seen every shocking moment between Dylan Wang and Shen Yue, then you need to stay right here until the very end, because what unfolded in front of 35,000 fans was not part of any script, not part of any performance, and definitely not something anyone could have predicted, and by the time it was over, the entire arena had turned into a storm of emotion, disbelief, and unforgettable energy that no one who witnessed it will ever forget. The night had started like any other major live event, filled with excitement, anticipation, and the kind of electric atmosphere that only thousands of fans gathered in one place can create. Lights moved across the massive stage, music echoed through the arena, and every moment felt carefully designed to entertain and impress. But beneath all of that, something else was building, something quieter, something that no one could see yet. Dylan Wang walked onto the stage, first greeted by a wave of cheers so loud it felt like the ground itself responded to it. His presence alone was enough to shift the energy of the entire arena, and as he smiled, waved, and began interacting with the crowd, the atmosphere grew even more intense, as if every second was leading towards something bigger. Moments later, Shen Yue appeared, and the reaction doubled instantly, voices rising even higher as fans realized they were about to witness the two of them sharing the same stage again, something that always carried its own kind of magic. But this time something felt different, something subtle, yet undeniable, as if the connection between them had changed in a way that could not be explained through rehearsals or performances. They stood side by side, at first exchanging light conversation, playful remarks, and familiar laughter, the kind of interaction fans had come to love over time. But even within that comfort, there were small details that began to stand out. The way their eye contact lingered slightly longer than usual, the pauses between their words that seemed filled with something unspoken, the quiet moments where neither of them looked away immediately. The crowd felt it before they understood it. A shift, a tension, an energy that was no longer just entertainment. As the event continued, they moved into a segment that required them to recreate a memorable scene from one of their past projects, something the audience had been waiting for, and as the music softened and the lights dimmed, the atmosphere transformed from excitement into anticipation. The stage became quieter, the massive arena somehow shrinking into a single moment, focused entirely on the two of them. Dylan Wang stepped closer. Shen Yue remained still, but her expression changed ever so slightly, a mix of focus and something deeper, something harder to define. The script called for a pause, a moment of emotional buildup, a scene that was meant to end just before anything more could happen, leaving the rest to imagination. But this time something unexpected happened. The pause lasted longer than it should have. The silence stretched further than rehearsed. And then, without warning, without hesitation, without any visible signal, Dylan Wang leaned in and closed the distance between them. For a split second, the entire arena froze. 35,000 people all at once, caught in a moment that felt suspended outside of time. And then it happened. The kiss. Real. Unscripted. Unavoidable. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming, a wave of sound so powerful it seemed to shake the entire venue, fans screaming, standing, reaching for their phones, trying to capture what they were seeing. But even through recordings, it felt almost unreal, as if the moment itself refused to be fully contained. On stage, everything slowed down. Shen Yue did not pull away immediately. That detail alone sent another surge of emotion through the crowd, because it suggested something deeper than a simple mistake or spontaneous action. It suggested a shared moment, something mutual, something that existed beyond performance. When they finally separated, neither of them spoke right away. They stood there looking at each other as if the world around them had disappeared, as if the thousands of voices surrounding them had faded into the background, leaving only the space between them filled with everything that had just happened. The silence that followed was just as powerful as the reaction before it. Then slowly reality began to return. The crowd, still roaring, still trying to process what they had witnessed, still unsure whether it had truly happened, or if it was part of something larger, something planned, something hidden within the performance. Dylan Wang stepped back slightly, his expression unreadable, not regretful, not overly confident, just present, as if he understood the weight of the moment, but was not trying to control how it would be interpreted. Shen Yue took a small breath, her composure returning, but not completely masking the shift in her expression, a softness, mixed with something more complex, something that suggested the moment had affected her just as deeply. The host attempted to bring the event back on track, but even as the program continued, the energy had changed completely because nothing that followed could match what had just taken place. Every glance, every word, every movement between them now carried new meaning because the line between performance and reality had been crossed in a way that could not be undone. As the night came to an end, fans left the arena still talking, still replaying the moment in their minds, still trying to decide what it meant, and whether it was a glimpse into something real or simply a moment of emotion that escaped the boundaries of a scripted event. Online platforms exploded within minutes, clips spreading rapidly, discussions forming instantly, theories emerging from every angle, some convinced it was planned, others certain it was spontaneous, but all agreeing on one thing. It changed everything. Because moments like that do not disappear easily, they stay, they evolve, they become part of a larger story that continues long after the stage lights fade. And as Wang and Shen Yue left the stage that night, neither of them offered an immediate explanation. No confirmation. No denial. Just silence. And in that silence, the moment grew even more powerful because it allowed everyone watching to interpret it in their own way, to feel it in their own way, to decide for themselves what they believed had truly happened. In the end, what made that night unforgettable was not just the kiss itself. It was the uncertainty that followed. The feeling that something real had broken through the surface of performance, if only for a few seconds, and in doing so had left a lasting impression that no one could ignore. And now the question remains, was it just a moment, or the beginning of something no one saw coming? Because whatever the answer is, one thing is certain. 35,000 people witnessed something they will never forget. The moment the stage lights dimmed after that unforgettable kiss, the arena did not settle. It only grew louder in a different way, like a wave that refused to disappear even after it had already hit the shore. 35,000 fans were still standing in shock, some screaming, some frozen, some replaying what they had just seen in their minds because it did not feel real even though it had happened right in front of them. But what happened after the cameras tried to regain control was something no one outside that arena fully understood. Backstage was silent in a completely different way. Not the silence of confusion, but the silence of realization. Wang had already stepped away from the center of the stage, but his expression had changed. It was no longer the confident performer who walked out in front of thousands. It was someone who understood that a line had been crossed that could not simply be walked back. He did not speak immediately. No explanations. No rehearsed response. Just a long pause, as if he was replaying the moment internally, trying to understand whether it belonged to performance or something far more personal. At the same time, Shen Yue was taken to a separate area backstage, where staff tried to quietly reset the situation, but she was not looking at anyone. She was not reacting to the noise. It was as if her mind was still trapped in that single second on stage where everything had stopped. Someone finally asked if she was okay. She nodded once. But it was not a clear answer. It was the kind of nod that says you are still processing something too large to explain in words. Meanwhile, outside the venue, the internet had already exploded. Clips were everywhere. Replays were everywhere. Opinions were forming faster than facts could follow. Some people were convinced it was scripted. Others believed it was completely real. And a third group simply kept replaying it because they could not decide what they had just witnessed. Inside the venue, the production team quickly shifted into damage control, trying to continue the program, but it was impossible. Every attempt to return to normal felt unnatural, like trying to rebuild silence after it had already been broken too loudly. Then something unexpected happened. The host returned to the stage, attempting to redirect the event, but even their voice trembled slightly. They thanked the audience, tried to move forward, but the energy in the room had permanently changed. Because everyone knew the truth now. This was no longer just a performance. It was a moment, and moments like that do not fade easily. Backstage, Dylan finally spoke for the first time since leaving the stage. He did not explain the kiss. He did not deny it. He simply said one thing. It was not planned the way people think. That was all. No further detail. No clarification. Just enough to confirm uncertainty rather than erase it. Shen Yue did not respond immediately to his words. Instead, she remained quiet, looking down for a long moment as if deciding whether the moment belonged in the past or was still continuing in some way. And then she said something very soft. Not for the public. Not for the cameras. Just for herself. It happened because it felt real in that second. That statement never reached the stage. It never became official. But those nearby heard it, and that was enough for the atmosphere around them to shift again. Because now the story had entered its most complicated phase. Not confirmation, not denial, but emotional uncertainty. As the night slowly ended, both of them left separately, avoiding any joint appearance. The production team did not force explanations. They simply ended the segment early, knowing nothing else would match what had already happened. Outside the venue, fans refused to leave for a long time. Some cried. Some celebrated. Some argued. Some simply stood still, holding on to the moment like it might disappear if they blinked too hard. And online, the moment had already become global. Millions of views within hours. Reactions from every direction. Debates about reality versus performance. Emotional breakdowns from fans who had followed their work for years. But the truth remained untouched. No official confirmation was ever fully given. No official denial was ever fully made. And that ambiguity became the final shape of the story. Days later, both Dylan Wang and Shen Yue returned to their professional lives separately. There were no joint appearances. No follow-up statements. No attempt to redefine what had happened. But something had clearly changed. Because every time they were mentioned together after that night, the world no longer saw just two actors. They saw a moment that blurred every boundary between performance and reality. And even though time moved forward, the memory of that night stayed fixed. 35,000 people witnessed something they could never agree on completely. But they all agreed on one thing. They had seen something unforgettable. And whether it was scripted or not no longer mattered as much as the feeling it left behind. Because some moments do not need explanation to exist. They only need to be remembered.